welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Sam, and in today's video, if you can't already tell by the thumbnail and title, is going to be all about my hysterectomy. I put a little question box up on my Instagram asking everybody if they had any questions about my hysterectomy. I have been talking about it non-stop, so I have all of those questions on my phone, and I'm going to answer those today, as well as like talk a little bit about my background and the story of why I needed a hysterectomy and all of that. So if that sounds interesting to you, then keep on watching. So I do want to preface this video with the fact that this is all going to be like TMI. If the talk of surgery, blood, pain, if any of that stuff would trigger you, I suggest to not watch this, because I am going to be talking pretty openly about it. I'm going to be talking a little bit more openly about it than I did or do on my Instagram, just because I really never know what words I'm allowed to say on there without getting like flagged for being inappropriate. And also I'm like posted up weird on this couch because that's one of the things I'll talk about, but it's just a little bit uncomfortable to like sit straight up. But yeah, let's just get into it. So before I answer the questions, I'll talk a little bit about my background. So I am 36. I needed my hysterectomy because I have a very, very large fibroid, or I don't anymore, but I did. That when they took it out, my doctor said was the size of a newborn. And so I found out that I had the fibroid when I was pregnant with my last son. He's 3 now, and so like 4 years ago I was getting an ultrasound, and they noted that I had a pretty large fibroid, and they would just note it every time I had an ultrasound. And I had a lot of ultrasounds just because I had had a miscarriage before this pregnancy, and I'm like old for being pregnant, and so I just had a lot of ultrasounds, and they would monitor the fibroid every time. They never said it was like alarming or dangerous or anything like that, but they just always wanted to keep an eye on it. And then after I had my son, I noticed that my stomach just like wasn't going down. Not even like, I'm not a like skinny girl, so my stomach was never gonna go down to like, you know, flat. But you know, after you have a baby, you look a bit pregnant for a while, and then it goes down, and then it kind of just turns like flabby or back to your normal self. So I had noticed that I went down a little bit like after I had Frank, and then my belly just progressively kept getting bigger again. Like a few years after I had him, I legitimately looked pregnant. So I had like a follow-up, I think like a year after I had him, I had like a follow-up ultrasound just to check on that fibroid, and it had grown, but it was still like okay. And then I'm sorry, it's hard to remember like all the dates and everything, because I feel like I've just been in a fog after having Frank. But I had another ultrasound because I noticed I could feel the fibroid. So he's 3, so it's like around 3 years out, a little over 2 years out is when I started like really being able to feel the fibroid. And to me, it felt like it just kept getting bigger. When I laid down on my back, I could feel it, like you could see the big lump. And so that was really concerning to me. So I had an appointment with my doctor, and she was like, grown, it's huge. But she was like, so we should do a hysterectomy. And I was like, what? I didn't expect to hear hysterectomy when I went into that appointment. I thought like maybe they could just remove the fibroid, have an appointment, have a surgery that just removes it and leaves everything else, because I still wasn't sure if I wanted to have another kid or not. And so she was like, okay, you're clearly like not really ready for this conversation. It's okay that it's still inside of you, so why don't you take some time and really think? Because she was like, if you don't want another baby, the safest route is to have a hysterectomy, because I've had 3 C-sections, and if I were to have a surgery where it was to just take the fibroid, it would be through my C-section scar, which would be a lot of bleeding to just have the fibroid out. Whereas if I were to have a hysterectomy, they would do it laparoscopically through my belly, which is safer for me personally. And so I thought about it a lot. I was just devastated at the thought of not having another baby. So then I had another ultrasound, I think a few months later. And she was like, okay, so like they looked at my uterus looked healthy, my ovaries were healthy. The fibroid was on the outside of my uterus, so she was like, you could have another baby if you wanted to. I was like, okay, great. So like went home and sat on that for a few weeks, and it just kind of got to me where I was like, even though it's okay, like inside my uterus is okay, I'm like, where is that big fibroid going to go once I'm big and pregnant? And I already felt big and pregnant. So it's like, is it gonna like jam up into my ribs and I'm just gonna like not be able to breathe my whole pregnancy? On top of that, during my pregnancy with him, my fibroid was so big, I literally thought it was his head before I knew I had a fibroid. Like I was like, oh, that's his head. It was huge. So I was like, I can't even imagine it being double the size and getting pregnant again. And then we just really just felt like, okay, we're done having kids. And so I called back and I was like, I think I want to do the hysterectomy. I would just rather be done with it. Also, on top of that, I'll touch into that because I think that's one of the questions, but on top of that, my periods were awful, like heavy bleeding. So I was like, I think this is just what I'm gonna do. So I called back and she's like, let's do it. And I really trust my doctor. I have like one of the best doctor's offices in Maine. I live in Maine. They're the best. And I just really trust her. I've had her as my doctor for pretty much my whole entire adult life. And so she was like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and do it. And because the fibroid is so big, like we will have to do it through your C-section scar, and that kind of scared me, but I was like, okay. And then she called me back like a week or so later, and was like, you know what, I think it'd be safer if you do it laparoscopically with the robot. Like now they do it with a robot, which sounds weird, but it's like robotic little arms. And then the doctor like controls the machine from like across the room. So anyway, she said, but I'm not trained with this machine, so I'm going to refer you to my colleague that doctor who ended up doing my surgery also did Frank's circumcision and a bunch of other things. Like I knew him and I felt comfortable, so I was like, okay. So then they scheduled that. So now I'm gonna go into the questions and see. So this one says, can you talk about your symptoms waiting on imaging but likely dealing with this to clarify your symptoms before finding out you needed a hysterectomy? So my symptoms before the hysterectomy got progressively worse, like as the fibroid got bigger. So they were horrible periods, like bleeding. Okay, so like I said, this video is TMI. So I use one of those like menstrual cups, and before I could put that in, before I had Frank, I could put that in the morning and leave it in all day and change it before bed, leave it in all night, and then change it in the morning. So I only changed it twice a day because you're supposed to be able to leave it in for 12 hours safely. Once I had the fibroid, I would have to change that cup like every hour or two, and it would be pouring over with blood. And in the night, I would guaranteed be soaking through my pants, soaking through onto my bed. There were several times the last couple periods I had before the surgery where I felt extremely faint and dizzy. Like I literally almost passed out one time. It's really scary. I just always felt tired, always felt sluggish, foggy, always so bloated and crampy. Like just, you know, when you eat something that's very like gas, like gives you lots of gas, and you are just like about to explode with gas, like that's how painful it is. That's how I felt all the time. It was just like by the end of the day, my stomach would just be like a rock. I literally looked like 9 months pregnant. I'll probably insert a picture. And like I said, I'm not a small girl, but it's different. It wasn't like chubby, you know, squishy belly. It was like round and hard, like I was pregnant. I literally would like rub my belly sometimes because it felt like a pregnancy belly. And then another symptom was shortened periods, shortened cycles, I mean. So I would get my period like every couple weeks instead of like a 25 to 30 day cycle. And especially the last couple of periods, I had my period and then I stopped for like a week and then I got it again, which is not normal for me whatsoever. I was like very, very regular. And another weird symptom was having like a very heavy period for a few days and then not tapering off. It would be like bright red or purpley blood, like heavy, and then just nothing. And then it'd be like 2 days, absolutely nothing, start full on back up again. So it was like off and on periods, the bloating, the big belly, and also I could feel it. I could physically feel the fibroid. So it was like a pressure on my bladder. And then after I had the hysterectomy, my doctor told me that it had, oh, and another thing, TMI, was that I was like always constipated. I was either constipated or feeling like I needed to go constantly. So I would like go and it wouldn't be a lot. It would be like, I felt like I was like going number 2 like all day, but like only a little bit. And I felt like my day just revolved around like going to the bathroom and then having my period. And then when I was ovulating, I was bloated. And it was just like my life revolved around this. It was awful. I found out after I had my hysterectomy that it had adhered, the fibroid had adhered to my intestines and my bladder. It was just, everything was like all mangled up in there because it was like squishing everything up. Let me go to another question. Where did the fibroid start? Sorry if that's dumb. I don't think that's dumb. I mean, I don't know. Fibroids are very, very common. Like, I don't know the statistics, but a lot of women have them, and they can be very small, and you can live your whole life with them. Like sometimes, like, I mean, I've had fibroids before. Like they came and went when I had my other pregnancies, and that's what they said too, is like after your pregnancy this will shrink, and mine didn't shrink. So listen to your body, and get your checkups. Be like, I want another ultrasound after I have the baby to make sure that the fibroid's shrinking if you do have a big fibroid, because I went like a whole year without, and it just, like, if I had caught it sooner, you know. Anyway, so I don't know where they start, but they're just like a little mass. Like they're non-cancerous pretty much 99% of the time, and they just, you really can get no symptoms whatsoever if they're small, and a lot of women have them. And yeah, I don't know where they start. I'm so sorry, I don't know how it starts. What was the entire process like? I know, super broad. Recovery troubles, things you wish you did differently, products you highly recommend. Okay, so the whole process of the actual surgery, so they scheduled my surgery, and then, you know, you do your pre-op, pre-registration. The hospital will call you and you'll just give them all your information. And then the day before, 12 hours before the surgery, I couldn't eat, and then I could drink water up until like 2 hours before. And to prep, you really don't have to do anything. I did use Dial soap to like wash my body because I'm psychotic about getting an infection, because I had an infection from my first C-section. And anyway, so you go into my hysterectomy was a laparoscopic, robotic hysterectomy. So I had everything taken out through my incisions on my stomach, and I will show those in a few too. A lot of women have them vaginally, which is what my doctor was going to do, like where they do you'll have your laparoscopic incisions from the robot arms, if that's how it goes, and then they will pull everything out through your vagina. But my fibroid and my uterus were too big, so my doctor had to cut an extra big incision on my belly to pull it all out. So I didn't have anything taken out through my vagina, I don't believe. But so now I have an extra big cut here, and he didn't want to go through my C-section scar because it was like way too much scar tissue. So another thing, sorry, I feel like I'm all over the place, but another thing is that they took my cervix, they took my uterus and my fallopian tubes, but left my ovaries. So what they did was like sew up the top of my vagina, so it's just like my vagina and then nothing, which is very bizarre. And that's something that has been like a little bit hard in the recovery part. But anyway, so back to the process. So I went into the hospital. They do like your pre-op, and I laid in my pre-op bed forever because my doctor was held up in a previous surgery where that woman's fibroid was also really big and bigger than he thought. So that surgery was taking a lot longer. So I was supposed to have surgery, I think at like 1, and I didn't end up having it until like 5. And then I stayed at the hospital until like 1 a.m. So it was very different than I thought it was going to go, but it still all went fine. So I was in pre-op for a while. You might be in it shorter than I was. And I was most nervous about anesthesia and all that, and I don't remember a thing. So what they did in the pre-op was they put this little patch on the back of my ear. It's like a nausea patch because I get very, very nauseous from anesthesia, and I think it might just be a common practice that they do. They might do it for everybody. And that did really help. I was not nauseous from the anesthesia. And so they did that, and then they started an IV. Super simple. And then when I got into the OR, all I remember is laying there, and that's it. Like, I don't remember them giving me anesthesia or like doctors coming in. I don't remember anything, which I'm really grateful for because going in the OR is a little scary. Also in my IV, I think they gave me something to make me feel a little tired and loopy before I got in there, so that might also attribute to that. So, but honestly, I remember nothing, and that was the thing I was the most scared about, was like going under. Don't remember a thing. So then when I woke up, this was honestly the worst part of the entire process for me. I had no idea that when you're in the surgery, they like fill up your abdomen with air or gas or something to be able to like see better to do the surgery. So when I woke up, I had shooting, stabbing pain in my shoulder, which I was just like, what is happening? And I was still really, really out of it. Like, I don't even think my eyes were open. But they said it was like trapped air, trapped gas. And yeah, so that is a possibility that will happen to you, because I'm part of a hysterectomy Facebook page. There's tons of them. Just like search hysterectomy group on Facebook and you'll find tons. It's a little anxiety inducing sometimes to be in those groups, so just a warning, like sometimes they're like telling worst case scenarios, and it's so stressful seeing that when you're trying to recover and you're just like, but sometimes it's helpful to get questions answered, so be careful with that. But anyway, in that group I saw like so many other women went through the same thing, so I think it's just pretty common that you just get that gas. So the only thing that helps get rid of it is to walk around, but walking around is like kind of painful when you first wake up. So it's a lot the first couple hours coming out of that surgery. At least it was for me. I'm just going off of my experience. Also, I am not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just telling my story. And also when I woke up, my whole abdomen like would tense up and just feel like knives. Like and that happened for like a day. Anytime I would try to sit up, it was just like convulsions, like almost like a contraction, and it felt like stabbing. And I think it was all that trapped air, and I really should have gotten up more those first couple days to like get it all out. But after like the first day or so, it went away. That I was really worried about that, because I was like, is this how the recovery feels? Is just like shooting pains? Like, it was awful. I would cry. I was just crying. And also when you wake up, they want you to pee before you leave if you are not staying overnight. So that was like hard because I was just like so out of it. It felt like they were trying to like really get me out of there. They're like, okay, you gotta pee, you gotta get up. I'm like, and so also like the first time I peed, it burned and hurt so bad. I think like the incisions and having the catheter and all of that stuff, it just really burned. But that also goes away in a few days. So anyway, after that, I stayed there for a couple more hours, and then I went home. The ride home was a little rough as well. Like, I'm gonna need to stand up soon, so I'm trying to like make this a little bit faster. But sitting on your vagina hurts so bad because the incisions up there, like, it's all inflamed, and it just hurts. It's like there's a wound and you're recovering from that, and it's painful. So like most of my recovery has just been laying down, and then I get up and walk around to like make sure I'm moving my body. But sitting, it does hurt. I'm not gonna lie. Did you get to see the fibroid? No, I did not, and I really, really wanted to. I have seen some other ladies' pictures of a fibroid and uterus in the hysterectomy pages, and so I'm assuming it just looked like that. It's hard to tell really what it looks like. It's just all red because it's bloody. It's like a big lump. Ugh. Apologies if this is too personal. Did they remove your cervix? Yes, they did. So I got nothing. And so far I'm fine with that. I feel like I don't know if my like recovery would have not been as painful if I kept my cervix, but I do know that you don't necessarily need one, and it's just another place to develop cancer, in my opinion. So it's like, just take it, I guess. Do you have anything after to maintain hormones? I don't need hormone therapy because they kept my ovaries. If they take your ovaries, you'll need hormone therapy. So, which is kind of weird, but how can I advocate for myself? I'm afraid of being pushed away. I would say if you feel like you have to keep like pushing your doctor, you need a new doctor, because my doctor was the one who like pushed me, not in a mean way, but was like, you know, I just feel like my doctor is such a good advocate for me and for other women. Like, this is happening to your body. You need this done. And this is the safest way to go about feeling better and being a normal, productive human being again, you know? I never ever felt like I needed to push. Like, she was like, you can have another baby. And I was like, okay. And then when I called back, I was like, you know what? Actually, I want to have the hysterectomy. She was like, great. Like, you know, there was no pushback. She's always listened to me when there's a fly, spoke about things that I feel like are important for my body. And if you feel like you have to continuously push and advocate for yourself with your doctor, I think you need a new doctor. And don't be afraid to bring stuff up to them. So, so I didn't answer more about the recovery. So I'm just going to talk about my recovery now, since I've talked about the process of the surgery. Oh, this hurts so bad. So one of the biggest things is I can like kind of feel my sutures, and I think that's common as well. It's like they're kind of like poking inside. So if I sit up, it hurts. If I lay down, I don't really feel it. If I walk around a lot, I will start to feel it because it's like everything's inflamed. One thing about recovery is that my doctor didn't really tell me, like, they send you home with some paperwork, but I didn't really know a lot of what's normal and what's not. And they're great when I call, like, they're like, you're fine, you know, whatever. But I did not know much about the recovery, and it's also my fault because I didn't look too much into it, because I have like health anxiety, so I really didn't want to see anything bad. But as far as recovery goes, it's a lot longer of a process than I thought it would be. It's more so just, you have to take it easy, because even if you feel good, you don't want to ruin your recovery, because you really, like somebody has said to me, you only have one chance to recover. And they removed like vital, not vital, I guess not vital because I don't need it, but major organs in my body. And even if I feel okay on the outside, there's lots and lots of healing on the inside, my doctor has told me. So like the body, I'm exhausted all the time, but he's like, the body is like, your immune system is like in overdrive trying to heal your body, all these things inside. So you just have to take it easy, and you have to listen to your body. So recovery for me has been laying down a lot, but getting up to walk around, to like move around. I almost feel like I should do that more, but I also have been having some spotting, and then the more I move, the more I spot, and that really just like triggers me. So I've been like really, really resting. So things I would highly recommend for recovery: the first week or two, I really was kind of like bed bound, and I would recommend like one of those more supportive, like sitting up style pillows. I'm going to link everything down below that I talk about. But, and I would also recommend a stomach binder that like wraps around your belly and like compresses everything. Oh my god, that thing was a lifesaver. I don't really need it right now, but in the first couple weeks it was vital. So highly recommend. I'll link the one that I love below. I would highly recommend that you have someone help you do everything. Like, I did not realize how helpless I was going to be. Even though I feel and look okay, I still need help. And I'm a little over 3 weeks out. So my doctor said it really takes the full 6 to 8 weeks to be like better. So like taking care of my toddler, I can't pick him up. I can't bend down and pick up something heavy. So like all of our pots and pans are like down in a cupboard. I can't pick those up. You really don't want to like bust a stitch or, you know, rupture anything. And so I can't mop, I can't sweep, I can't vacuum. You know, not that I want to do those things, but it's hard to like watch Renee have to do everything. It's hard. Another thing about recovery is that I cry all the time. I almost just started crying. I have been crying like so much, like pretty much every day I cry. And I think it seems common, like I said in those hysterectomy groups, the crying. It's like everything's just kind of like leveling out and your hormones are like re-leveling, you know? Another thing that happened to me after my surgery that I've still been recovering from is my left like leg went numb. So when I woke up from surgery, my whole right side was just numb. And that really scared me. And I said that to the nurse and she was like, oh, that's normal. I'm like, what? Like, why did nobody tell me that can happen? But my doctor said, you know, at my 2-week post-op, he said that that's something that can happen and it's very normal. It's just not something that happens to everyone. So they don't like say, you know, they don't tell you like this is going to happen to you for sure. Because it's not everyone's journey. Apparently just, you know, mine. But it's slowly like I started to get my feeling again, and then now it's just kind of like from the back of my knee down to my big toe, like that whole side. It's not the whole leg. It's like half of my knee, the whole right side of my leg, from my knee down up to my big toe. And now I can kind of feel my big toe again and I can bend it. So now it's like the middle of my foot. It's just a very bizarre feeling, and it's very annoying because I kind of hobble around. Like, so when I do get up to walk around, I'm like barely able to walk. That was something I wasn't expecting, and but it can happen and it is normal, and I am starting to get feeling back, and my doctor said like this is not something that's permanent. You don't have permanent nerve damage. What happens is, don't Google this if it's going to scare you, but the position that you're in for this surgery, your legs are kind of like up a little. And so like I was in surgery for so long because my fibroid was bigger than he thought, and they had to, you know, reroute what they were going to do. So I was in there a lot longer, basically laying in one weird position for like 5 hours. So it just caused some nerve, like not, he said it was like nerve inflammation. That's what it was, not damage. But, and on top of that, when they're like poking around and they're doing the surgery, like sometimes they can hit a nerve. So if that happens to you, just know it's normal and it'll go away. But always, like with any of these symptoms, talk to your doctor to make sure. Like, I'm not your doctor, you know, so I don't know. But that was something I wasn't expecting. And okay, I got cut off because my storage is getting full. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up with showing you, sorry, I don't know where I left off, but I'm gonna show you my stomach and my incisions and just show you what it looked like 3 weeks post-op. Okay, so here is what the incisions look like. Everyone I think will get 3. I had maybe 4, I'm not sure, but I had this one is where they pulled everything through, and as you can see, there's like this little clear stuff. It's like a suture tape, but it dissolves. This one looks kind of gross, but anyway, so mine's starting to dissolve, and my doctor said at my 2 week that it was totally fine if it starts to come off now. But that is what it looks like. I'm still swollen, still get bloated like by the end of the day just because of all the healing. But yeah, I hope I answered all of the questions. I tried as hard as I could to remember everything. Another thing I'll say is definitely listen to the pain med schedule they tell you to do. For the first couple weeks I did the Tylenol, ibuprofen off and on, and that just really helped. And don't be afraid to take medicine. Like, this is a major surgery. But yeah, drop a question in the comments if there's something that I didn't answer, and give it a like if you like this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm sorry I'm crouched over. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.